Hello everybody. I've been working on some more terrain for my bolt action games, which of course would also work with chain of command games, but that I play in 28mm. What I've been working on here recently has been making some train tracks to add to my terrain collection. I'm getting a pretty good variety of terrain in my bolt action games, but so I've kind of been looking for some sort of unique things that I can add, and I believe in chain of command even there's some scenarios that call for some rail lines, and they were common, of course, across most of the theaters, definitely in France and Belgium, which my table's kind of modeled after. So then I was trying to decide how to go at that, and there's lots of different ways to do it. And what I chose to do was I went on to eBay and bought a bunch of used HO scale track, which looks like this when you get it. And it comes in, I believe it's about 9 inches long is what that happens to be, a curved piece. It's just plastic ties and metal track that be used for HO scale. HO scale is 1/87th. Which, as you know, 28mm is about 1/56th. But the difficulty you have is in the model train gauges or scales, there is not a 1/56th. The next thing that it jumps to is O scale, which is about 1/48th. Sometimes people call it about 1/43rd, but it's about 1/48th. And in my opinion, the track on O scale or O gauge looks way too big for the troops, but the HO scale cars are way too small. So what I did, I used HO scale track like I showed you here, and then this rail car here is O gauge, so it'd be 1/48th, so it's about right. And this particular car here is called ON30 gauge or ON30 scale in model train layouts. And what that does, it's a 1/48th scale car, but it's modeled to go on a narrow gauge track, which were somewhat common in areas of the United States as well as Europe through the different periods in history. And so that's why the model railroaders have used that as a scale. Which to me works perfectly then for 1/28th scale, because the track looks about right for the guys, the spacing. And it's a tiny bit narrow if you scale it out, but the O gauge looks just crazy too big. So that's about right for that. But then the cars, to make them in scale, you've got the O gauge cars. So the ON30 scale car on the HO scale track, and the HO scale track is dirt cheap. I bought a whole box of used track off eBay. I think with shipping and everything it was like $15, and I probably have 20 feet of it. So I mean, it is just dirt cheap. So that part's nice. And then what I did, I'll show you a section. I made each 9-inch piece as a section so that I can lay it out however I want. I got some curves, some straights, and then so that's kind of what it looks like looking up from the top, or let's see, down the track. There we go. And what I did, I wanted it raised a little bit, and to get that raise, what I did was used a piece of on the bottom to give it a nice firm base that won't warp. That's 1/8 press board or hard board, depending, or MDF would be probably similar, but I think they call this hard board. And I think at like Home Depot in the United States you can get like a 2 by 4 foot piece for like $11 or something, or maybe it's less than that. I mean, it's so cheap. So I use it for all the basing for my terrain pieces. And then to get it to raise, you can see that little. I'll show you what it looks like. this piece right, sorry about that, right here that the track is raised on, that's actually made by Woodland Scenics, and it's HO scale foam track bed, which is that. It's flexible foam, and you can just cut it with a scissors or a hobby knife, and I glued that then to the 1/8 inch hardboard to the length, and then glued the track on top of that, which gives you your kind of your raised rail bed. And then for what they call ballast, or the gravel that you see, I used also a Woodland Scenics product, and this is what I use, Woodland Scenics medium ballast gray blend. You can get, this is medium, they've got of course fine and coarse, but for the HO scale typically they suggest using the medium. And then the color, there's tons of color choices depending on what area of the world or what area of the United States you're modeling your train after. I just went with kind of the generic gray. I like the look of it. It's kind of what I think of. I'm actually not sure what they have in France or Belgium, but anyway, that's what I chose. And I think I got this whole huge container, which that's all I used of it for. I think this whole container was maybe $15 with shipping, and so that's not expensive either. Okay, so then yeah, so that's how I made each section. A little bit of tedious work there, but it was nice. The track that I bought on eBay had everything from this rail stop that you see down at the end here, so that you could have, you know, where your end of your line would be, and then over here, I actually made this that little section there. It's just a piece of straight section, a place where the road can cross, and I just use strips of cereal box to make like planking. I'll tip it up so you can kind of see it if I can. There we go. And use the cereal box to make planking, and then gridded the base to match kind of what my roads are. And so that was easy to make, and then I can have a rail crossing section. And then I think I made about 10 feet of it, so it goes clear off the edge of the board, and I've got 3 extra pieces I think on top of that. So it gives me a lot of options on how I want to lay the track out. So and then again, just to come back to the ON 30 scale car, the doors even slide. This particular one has some sacks inside and some barrels, and I got it used also on eBay, and if you just search ON 30 train cars, and I think with shipping and everything, they can be a little expensive, but I was kind of patient and kind of picked, found a deal. Shipping and everything was about $25, so you wouldn't maybe want, it'd be a little expensive maybe if you wanted to put 6 or 8 cars on the track, but for me, it's more of a sort of a little piece of train, a little flavor. I wasn't looking to have a whole train going across the whole board, so for me that wasn't much more than an armored kit would be for a Sherman or something for your bolt action. So that was reasonable enough. And then I had to do all the weathering. It was just a black and a brown plastic. And it kind of had, I think Colorado and Southern is the logo there, which is the CNS. And so I weathered that down so much that you can't read it. And then I figured the CNS and the number that wouldn't bother anybody. So anyway, so that's what I did for train. I was real happy with how it came out. By the end of the project, I was pretty ready to be done. Just because this ballasting, that fine ballast, you got to sprinkle it over the top, and then I was using just a fine tip like hobby knife or toothpick to grate the stuff off of the track so that the ties were not covered. and that was tedious. And then I used a watered down glue that I could use in a syringe and just drip it on to then make it hard as a rock. But anyway, I'm real happy with the results. I did paint up the rails, and which I'll kind of show you here. There we go. I put rust kind of on the sides of the rails, and on the, I don't know the technical words, but here where they fasten to the railroad ties, and then painted the ties in various shades of browns and grays, and then dry brushed them to make it look a little more realistic. And then I took a bit of silver paint across the top of the rail where it would be shined up from train cars running across it, and just to show you a comparison, then this is what it started out as. So yeah, I mean the light doesn't show it as well as I guess it could, but so that's what I did. Got rid of the track is actually a gold color when it starts, and so anyway, so that's kind of what I did. I just thought I'd share that with people because I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how I was going to make train tracks for my bolt action, and I was real happy with how this worked out. And then because of the raised rail bed, you could even use it for it could be a hard cover. The guys, if you want to use it that way, it's another thing to have on your board that can, of course, add some theme or some story. Where wheeled vehicles can't cross over, it could be rough ground. So it can, create some tactical situations as well too. So I did do a few more buildings I painted up, which you maybe have seen as I've panned across here. But I'm going to do a separate video on those just to kind of highlight what they are and to keep the topics separate. But anyway, guys, thanks for taking time to watch. Got any questions? Feel free to ask. But it was a pretty affordable way to give yourself some rail lines on your World War II tables. So hey, everybody, take care of yourselves and each other, and I will talk to you again soon. Thanks.